kind of bear with me as I learn the video blogging thing. You'll probably be seeing my face quite a bit more. But one thing I want to continue to talk about is sacred space. And one of the things that I have found to be really helpful in determining what's a sacred space is a place where you really feel rewarded. So I believe I've been talking about more mode and being able to kind of just put out there that sometimes gaining more kind of looks like asking for more. Sometimes might mean taking risks. Um, but I'm going to tell you about a season that I went through before all that more came. And it was pretty tough. And actually, it was rather difficult, very difficult. But I had the supports and the people around me to help me. And as I utilized them, I found myself being graced through the whole process. So I talked about at last about how when I was in war mode, there were a couple of things that came off of me. Okay, it started with a relationship release, and from that relationship release gone bad, I got a divorce. But then I made friends with my lifetime partner. I gained new perspective about living. I was able to relocate to a new area. I had a girlfriend community. I gained a new career where I was able to do some independent contract work. Um, I began to take care of my soul, and I had a new trust of myself. I don't think I mentioned that last time, but I want to pause here because one of the things that I did was I was able to learn how to trust myself all over again. I found that the freedom and the energy and the happiness that came with being me allowed me to begin to trust my actions. And as long as I didn't have any criticism or self doubt around that, and my identity became clearer, I was able to nurture that and feel better about who I was. And so I talked about just being able to flourish, excuse me, with new beginnings in my life. And so it was a new process. But um, during that period, I think what I realized was that during this time, I was able to experience miracles, literal miracles. So the water was warm for miracles. I desired change so much to come into my life. Um, but first, I had to go through the adversity. I had to literally be pushed into a corner, and I couldn't back myself out. I found myself actually begging to God and saying to myself, "Hey, girl, it's time for something new. Let's get moving. Aren't you ready for new beginnings?" Um, so I kind of had to coach myself daily through the process. And I remember I lived in this loft, and I kept right above my head a little 3x5 card that said where I was going. And I began to speak to that place where I was going because I knew I was planning to live in Maryland. So I began to speak prosperity, success, peace, um, everything that I wanted and needed and hoped for. I just began to speak forward. So a miracle happened, but it took a while. It wasn't something that happened right away. And so I remember asking and begging God, and I had to get on his nerves about, um, Lord, what am I doing wrong? How come for me? I feel stuck. Um, so during this season, what I found was I didn't really settle for less. I was pretty desperate, in fact, but I was desperate in a good way, in a way that I was willing. I had a willingness. Um, okay, Lord, if you can just get me through this period, um, in this desperate season in my life, um, I'll commit to you. So I began to talk to him, and say, this is what I'm committed to, and this is what I'll do for you, and just push me forward into this place. And sometimes you have to be willing to take risks. You have to be willing to step out and do some things for God that you normally might not do. Um, but I challenge you to do that. There's this movie that I tend to like. It's called John Q. And Denzel Washington is in it. And so it's about a man who can't afford to pay um, for his son's failing heart, and he needs a heart operation. Um, he races it against the clock, planning to take over a hospital. He takes the hospital over, holds people hostage, um, and plans to eventually, because there's no donor, to give his heart to his son, and actually begins to arrange his own operation. Well, in the process of this, there's this wonderful, graceful opportunity happening that he knows absolutely nothing about. Um, a heart is coming to his son, and somebody has gotten into a crash and actually died. Um, so, as fate would have it, his desperation turns into a blessing. He walks into a miracle that had been in the making from the time that he decided to take the matter into his own hands. I love it. And the reason I love it is because this story is about hope, expectations, taking risks. It's about desperation, but even it says an even larger statement about miracles and how they occur. And so miracles are always in the making. I think that our spirits have to be at a place of rest and willingness and cooperation with God. And when we get into that place, what happens is God begins to arrange things to happen for you and on your behalf. But it has to be done with a spirit of goodness and harmony and cooperation with God. Um, and maybe a begging and pleading of sorts. But that's cool because that's communication with God. So I think there's nothing wrong with that. And sometimes it's in the places of desperation where we get the most from God. I'm going to talk a lot about desperation. I may even create a series about it and write about it, blog about it. I don't know. But um, it's just good to know when you're in that place and what you got to do to get out of it. So I'm going to call this one Miracles in the Making because I think that miracles don't always start out as miracles. Um, but um, I'm just really happy to share with you like this, and I'm hoping that you'll gain something from this. So stay tuned. Peace.